All right, we are live. Welcome everybody to Hump Day Hangouts. This is episode number 540, and today is the 2nd of April, 2025. I guess for better or worse, we missed a April Fool's Hump Day Hangout by one day, probably for the better. But we are here. We are here to answer your local SEO questions, whether you're an agency owner, freelancer, business owner, whatever it might be. But we do have a couple of quick announcements and want to say hi to the guys, and then we will jump into it. I realize I'm too zoomed in. I've actually got my Semantic Mastery sweatshirt on today. I was kind of bummed it's not showing. But first of all, Chris, how you doing today?
Doing good as usual, cooking in the labs. Yeah, busy as usual.
Nice. Bradley, how about yourself? How you doing today?
Same as Chris, except
Yeah,
this is a beautiful day. I've got the windows open. It's like 78 degrees here. It's windy on top of this mountain today, but it's fucking beautiful. So I'll take it.
nice.
And I'm glad to be here. It's nice to have some fresh air blowing through the RV today instead of being cooped up in the box. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I'll be happy for you guys. I think it's like 42 degrees and it started raining. So it is what it is, but
Yeah,
it's
boo.
nice when the
Right
weather
on.
turns. So
Right on.
Well, we got a couple of quick announcements. I wanted to remind everybody that Hyper Local Lead System is now available as of Monday. You can find out more about that at hyperlocalleadsystem.semanticmastery.com. We've been talking about this for a couple weeks now, and as usual, Bradley, I'm going to let you tell people a little bit more about that, just as far as, industry analysis, the low comp market criteria, the templates, just kind of give people the quick rundown and who this might be useful for.
Sure. So it's parts of the DHA program extracted and kind of bundled up into just kind of it's a different angle really to promote parts of what we already have. And so we taking for those of the people that don't really want to run a big agency or or just want to focus on lead gen and that kind of stuff. This is the components out of the directory hybrid agency program that you can select an industry, which is very thorough on helping you decide on which industry to select, and then how to do keyword and location research in that specific industry so that you can identify low competition areas to target. Then there's website templates, both in high level and in WordPress. That is the type of template that I developed from which integrates single service pages for each service and single locations for each location we wanted to target with that, and for as a service area. Even if it's a storefront business, it can be most storefront businesses their websites can be modified to be treated as a service area business so that they can rank across a larger area if they want to. A lot of storefront businesses don't want to, but if they want to, you can do that. And so it's that type of a site design, type of site structure, which, like I said, I've been testing. And sorry, there's shit flying around because I got the windows open and it's blowing papers and stuff through my
Got,
RV.
got the fresh air, but
Yeah,
now
I was like, holy
everything I got
crap.
to
I was
work
like, what
with.
the hell was that? It was something blowing by because of the wind. It's really windy here today. So anyways, it's just there's for those that don't want to do kind of the whole build an agency process, it's the components extracted out to focus more on the local SEO side of things alone and not all the other agency things. But as part of the bonuses included in that, you get access to the agency training and stuff if you want that as well. So it's kind of a way to just reposition some of the training and assets that we have in our mastermind for people that are maybe not don't want everything and just want parts of it. And so this is just a way to kind of keep guardrails on, so to speak, within the training and the community. But they'll anybody that joins will have access to the larger community too, the mastermind community, which is where this ongoing support is for everything and all that other kind of stuff. So anyway, it's just kind of a different way to introduce some of what we have available, and that's what we did. So that's available currently. If anybody's interested, go check it out.
Awesome. Well, that's what I wanted to focus on. We got a couple other small things, but I think we can get away with that. So it's hyperlocalleadsystem.semanticmastery.com. Go check it out. Other than that, I think we're good to get into questions.
Right on. Well, we
Also,
got a few.
yeah, quick shout out to David and Cecilia. I see people already chatting. So what's up, you guys?
Yeah, what's up, guys? And as David, good to see you here, man. It's been a while. Um, and what's up, Cecilia? It's not been long for you. I was chatting with her this morning. So, in fact, I think I may have been taken on a April Fool's joke yesterday. I won't go into too many great details on that yet, but I may have. And Cecilia, fortunately, I shared it with her and her only. And then she called me out about 10 minutes later, was like, "Are you sure this wasn't April Fool's?" And I was like, "Ah, shit." So, anyways, what's up, Nine? I see you too. So, all right, let me go ahead and grab the screen and we're going to get into it because we got a good question that I want to jump on first that was saved from a couple of weeks ago or from maybe it was last week, probably last week. Yeah, it was one that I did not get to last week, but that I wanted to. So, I'm going to try to answer that one first, which is James was asking, can you do an example sales call, delivering the listing, building report, offering building report, offering services, etc. Yeah, so give me a second. I'll pause the screen. Let's do this the right way. I will go through a mock call right now, just kind of as an example on a one-way call because I don't have anybody to role play with, and I'm not going to put Adam or Chris on the spot and ask them to role play.
Bradley, you don't want to role play with me? Come on.
No, I really don't. I always hated that in sales training where you had to role play. I fucking hated it. I honest to God did, but I understand why they, why it's part of the coaching process and learning process because it's practice. But I'd rather just practice on real world sales calls, just to be clear. I'm getting in the high level here, guys, so just give me a minute. I'd rather practice on real world sales calls because you're gonna it does put you under pressure to perform, but at the same time you also I think it forces you to try to learn quicker when you know that you just destroyed or ruined a sales call because you hadn't practiced enough, you hadn't had the technique down enough. For me, that kind of pressure helps me to learn how to perform so much faster than if I'm doing it in a practice setting. So like real world pressure really helps kind of speed the process that you gain proficiency, in my opinion. And at least for me, it does. So that's what I was saying. So let me grab I'm just going to use one of my existing clients because I don't want to go look for one that, so let me go grab this one. All right. So let me go ahead and pull the screen up. What we're going to do is just go through kind of how I walk through and when I first get on the call with a prospect, and then kind of the cadence and the process of that call. It's pretty much the same format every time. The conversation obviously is going to be different with each. And so the timing, and by the way, that's something else that I think is a really good opportunity for us to talk about right now. Is like I love Dan Kennedy books, and Dan I've studied and read just about everything Dan Kennedy's put out as far as books. Almost all of them, and some of them multiple times. And he's got a really good book about the ultimate sales letter. And he talks about, copywriting and the components and the elements of a sales letter. And that's how you should write sales copy, by the way, is in blocks so that, and when you assign those, like the copywriting as it relates to sales, I mean, like when writing a script or a pitch, it should be in blocks in that so that you can rearrange the order of it at any time. Like it shouldn't be robotic. It shouldn't always follow the exact same format because a conversation is fluid and it's natural. So you want to kind of have sections of your presentation in snippets, so to speak, bits and pieces of it, separated out so that it's almost like puzzle pieces that you can rearrange when needed. And so I think it's important. That's why I said all of my sales calls kind of follow the same format, so to speak, but the order in which they occur changes depending on the conversation. And so it's nice to have, especially through repetition, you learn how to, like, I can basically do my sales presentations in my sleep. You know what I mean? Like, no kidding, because I've done them so many times. I know the screen is still paused, guys, but I was busy flapping my mouth, so I have not found what I was looking for yet. Give me 1 second. Where the hell are there? They are. Okay, there they are. Sweet. All right, so I'm going to unpause the screen. Maybe I am sharing my screen. Yeah, okay, maybe I am sharing my screen. So anyway, here I am. This is one of the questions or one of the things that we do is I'm going to actually pull open the listing. Let me just go to companies and I'll pull that up real fast. Actually, I've got that here in the listing, but I don't want to lose my spot. Scrap that. And this is just so everybody knows that the way that I do the sales calls is it's really the listing delivery call. That's the start of a sales conversation. So when we get a cold inbound reply from a cold email, the contact replies. It instantly detects the reply. It's a custom webhook that pushes the contact in the high level. High level creates the contact card. automations take over that notifies my team members. My team members then will pick up that opportunity card and move it to the next stage in the pipeline, which is lead processing, when they're working on optimizing the listing, which is getting the company information. We have automations built out that send email or SMS, and a voice call if needed using AI voice, that then contacts the contact after they had replied to the cold email sequence. So they get a confirmation message, an automated confirmation message. Say, thanks, we've received your reply. We're going to get to work on your directory listing, and we're going to send it to you for review in the next couple of days, or whatever, next 2 days, whatever it says in the message. Okay. And then about 7 minutes later or so, a few minutes later, whatever it is in the automation for the wait step, it sends a message via an email and then an SMS that asks, hey, by the way, as we're optimizing your listing, how far out do you go to get jobs? Like, essentially, what is your service area? And so they'll reply back. And if they don't reply back within 12 hours or whatever it is, it sends another message again to follow up again. And then the following day, the voice AI call goes out if they didn't reply to the email and the SMS. So we've got multiple touch points to try to get them to reply back with the service area radius. Because what we're doing is we're automating the communication so that we're building rapport with them. And we're not trying to sell them anything until we get on the listing delivery call. So the first interaction that I have with the contact, in most cases, sometimes it'll get tripped up and I'll have to jump into a conversation because of something that occurred, whether it was a VA found, something where the conversation went awry through the automations or whatever, or at some point I may have to jump into the conversation before the booked appointment. But the whole point of all these automations is to reduce that or eliminate that entirely. Okay. And so most of the time now, all I do is get on the call with them, which the whole process is, once we've developed, asked them for their service area radius, my team finishes creating these images, like this one here, for example. And then once the listing is done, they've added the photos, they've added any videos that they're going to add, which if we find videos on their website, we'll add them to the listing, all that kind of stuff. We put the business hours. And then when it's ready, then they tag it as listing ready. And then the automations start to go try to book the appointment for the listing delivery call, which is the start of the sales conversation. And so at that point, when the automation takes over it sends them an email and an SMS, that says, hey, listen, your listing is ready for review. We'd like to review it with you on a call to make sure everything is accurate and that you're happy with it. Please select a time for us to review this on my calendar here, basically. So, and it sends them to a booking page. They either book the call or they're going to ask a question like, hey, why can't you just send it to me for review? And so there's an automation that detects if a reply comes back in, asks questioning, why they couldn't just have it sent to them or whatever. Why do I got to book the appointment? Blah, blah, blah. Then there's an if-else condition. It said that we'll send out the message that says, well, during the process of optimizing your listing, we identified some issues that are preventing you from getting work in the areas that you already told us you want to get work in. We'd like to address that with you on the call. Please select a time on the calendar. Booking link. Get it? And so they're either going to book the call or they're going to ask a follow-up question. And the follow-up question would be, well, what problems did you identify? Right? Or tell me what the problem is, or blah, blah, blah. And so then it says, then that's where these two come in, which is also something that will come in, even if they don't go through that whole sequence and they book immediately, or on the second step where I don't reveal this to them. In any case, when we get on the call, now I have the problem agitate solution framework available and it's ready to go. And that's what I work off of, because and so I will, and that's why in this, if they get to the third stage where they ask, what is the problem? Then we'll introduce the problem to them at that point. We'll show them the problem. And that's what this is right here. So where we come in is we say, well, this is where you told us you want to get, when they say, well, what is the problem? Well, we identified issues that are preventing you from getting jobs in the areas that you said you wanted to get jobs in. This is where you told us you want to get jobs. And boom, it sent a text message with a short link to that image URL, which I'll just show you. That's this one here. So if we copy this and we go look, this sends a SMS to them, says, hey, this is where you said you wanted to get jobs. That's also the same image that we embed into their listing. And then we say, but this is where you're actually getting jobs from, according to Google. It's only the areas in green. We'd like to help we'd like to show you or introduce some low-cost ways for you we'd like to help present you with solutions for how to resolve this on the call. Please book a time here. See what I'm saying? So in any case, now we've presented the problem to them if they get to that point. If not, then we just present the problem to them on the listing delivery call, which is again the start of the sales conversation. Because when I get on that call with them, so once they book the appointment, I make sure I confirm the time, because I've got multiple calendars, so I've always got to check for scheduling conflicts and all that. Once I've confirmed the appointment, it sends confirmation, and then they're in the appointment reminder sequence. And then once we get on the call, excuse me, once we get on the call, I start the call off with hey, thank you for attending this call. I'm Bradley with Tree Care HQ. And before we get started, I just want to kind of tell you what to expect on this call, because we're going to cover two things. The first is we're going to cover your listing and review it, make sure that everything is accurate, that you're happy with, make sure there's no missing services or anything that we're claiming within your listing that isn't true. And don't worry about it. All of this is free. Next, after that, I'm going to introduce some of the problems that some issues that were identified when we were optimizing the listing that are preventing you from getting work in the areas that you told us you want to get work in. And does it make sense for us to continue on this conversation? Or does it make sense for us to carry on? Does it make sense for us to continue? I nod my head and I ask that question. And I've not one time had a tree contractor say, no, I'm not interested, and hang up. Not one time. Even if I'm not on a Zoom call, which now most of them are Zoom calls. For a while there, it was all phone calls, but now I'm trying to force people to get on the Zoom calls with me so I can demonstrate with visual aids. And it seems that even the tree service industry is becoming more used to getting on the Zoom calls now than they were even a couple of years ago. No kidding, because they seem more open to it now than they were before. But anyways, in any case, even if I'm on a phone call, I still nod. It's habit, and it's because it's positive reinforcement, even for myself, if that makes sense. And so they say, sure, let's go, let's continue, whatever. They affirm, right? They reply in the affirmative. Sure, yes, let's go, whatever. Please continue, whatever it may be. And so then I go in and I say, hey, so this is your listing. I pull it up on the computer and I'm showing my screen. They also have access to it because I'll text it to them or email it to them. I'll ask them at the start of the call, would you prefer me to email you the link or text it to you? And they tell me, and now I'm right here inside High Level. So all I got to do is hit the SMS, and I can just hit the short code. My screen's crunched in because I got the window shrunk down, so I don't have all my options there. But anyways, I could just very quickly send an SMS with the short code, because all I got to do is select listing URL from the custom values or custom fields, excuse me, and then hit send, and it'll send them a link via text, or I could send it via email. So either which way, I can do that right here while I'm on the call with them. And I pull it up and then I just say, so here's what we have on your listing. Brief description. Here's the services that you offer. Are there any services that you offer that are not listed? And if they tell me if they're common services that I have, these are actually service tags is what these are, then I would just go right into the listing, and I will I'll open up Tree Care HQ, which is here, and I'll edit it right there on the spot for them, right? And I'll make sure we'll update their address or their phone number, or add www to their URL, or change their description, whatever it is. We're having communication with them about their listing and what they want to see, right? And remember, this is a free listing. It's not a premium listing, but we still flesh it out. We still add a video if they had any YouTube videos. We add multiple images, all of that stuff. And then once we've gotten through that, and we say, so you're good with this? You're happy with this now? And they say, yeah, it looks great. Then I say, okay, well, step number 2 is I'm going to show you the issues that I described to you that at the start of the call, or if they had been introduced to it in the sequence, then I can say, that I've already shown you. But if they hadn't been introduced to the issue yet, the problem yet, right? Remember, it's the problem, agitate, solution framework. And so then I will say the issue that we identified was that in your listing, which we're reviewing at the time that we're on the call, you see that image there, that's where you told us you want to get jobs from. So that's the area that you desire to get work from. Is that correct? Do you agree? And they'll agree. Yes, that's correct. Well, were you aware that this is where you're actually, and again, I'm right in here, and I'll have this ready to go to where I can fire off a text with the short link that takes them to this image here. And I say, well, do you realize that this is where the only place you're actually getting jobs from Google search within your service area is the areas that are marked in green. Well, that's what we specialize in, is helping tree contractors get a larger presence online, right? Have a better presence online, and not only generate more leads and improve their marketing, but then also how we help tree contractors manage those leads and build systems into their business so that they can close more of those leads, generate more revenue from existing customers and past customers, et cetera. So I go into the whole pitch of what we provide to tree contractors, but specifically to start with, and because again, now I have the data from the contact record, and in the notes section is where we'll find notes from my team members that are about, or the tags. I can go down and look at the tags and see which tags are the issues that particular campaign or website, that contact, what issues were their digital presence suffering from? Like what were the deficiencies? Let's put it that way, right? It'll be tagged, or notes will be website's terrible, or no website, or review counts low, or the review count, the review rating is low, so it means they got a poor reputation, or the review count is low, or their Google business profile isn't optimized, or it's a combination of any of those three items, etc. If that makes sense. So then again, when I'm on the conversation, I tell them, like, look, we help I've been working with tree contractors since 2014. We have some low cost front end services. And I tell them, by the way, I didn't say this at the beginning of this call, but I typically will tell them right at the beginning, we're going to talk about two things. And by the way, I'm not going to try to hard sell you on anything. I'm just going to show you some issues that we addressed, that we found. And I'm going to introduce some low cost options that will help to start to resolve those problems. Does it make sense for us to continue that call? And that's when I do that. And I say, yeah. And they always say, yes, let's continue. So they know that I'm going to offer them something, but I tell them right up front, it's a low cost offer. And I tell them, I'm not going to hard close you. I'm going to introduce you, present you with some solutions. If it makes sense for us to work together, great. If not, hey, no harm, no foul. The door is always open to you. We'll be here when you are ready. And I say that to them, right? That way, when I get to this point and I show them, I say, look, what we identified was, and I go into website GBP or reviews or a combination of those things. But when it comes down to it and I go to pitch, depending on how the conversation is going, I will tell them that I recommend multiple services, like LLG, like a new website, which is the LLG sites, or a Google Business SEO campaign, basic, which is only $99 a month, or reviews, which is review management and generation service, which also comes with the database reactivation or list reactivation campaign. And I tell the tree contractors it's a comeback campaign, right? Which means like you're asking your previous customers to come back, and that's part of the whole review service. And so I will either recommend a combination of those services, but if I feel like they're kind of closed off to the idea of wanting to proceed with any sort of significant investment because they don't know or trust me yet, and that's part of the reason we do all that rapport building, no kidding, is to get to the point to when we do make the offer, they're a lot more receptive, because we're not just straight pitching them like I used to do, which I was still successful with it, just a hell of a lot less successful, if that makes sense. But the point is, finally, if I feel that they're resistive to whatever I think is the proper recommendations, then I'm always going to revert to the review service right now, because that tends to have the biggest impact in the shortest amount of time on the performance of their GBP. So if I can only sell them on one thing, and by the way, I don't try to close them on the call. I present them with the offers, and then if they ask for a checkout page, if they're ready to close, I'll send them the checkout link, which again is just, I've got separate subdomain landing pages on my treecarehq.com, one for each of those services. And so all I'll do is fire off the subdomain to them, for the landing page in the SMS, and say, here you go, boom. You can check out there when as soon as we get off our call. But if they're not ready, I tell them, hey, listen, don't worry. These are the offers. You don't have to make a decision now. I told you I wasn't going to close you on this call. I told you that. We'll be here when you're ready. But in the meantime, when we get off the call, I'm going to go ahead and send you a few emails over the next few days that are going to kind of reinforce what we just talked about today. And those are the 3 nurture sequences that we covered a couple of weeks ago here on Hump Day Hangouts. Somebody asked about it, and I went through and showed the 3 nurture sequences. I got one for each of those 3 front-end services. So whichever service it was that we talked about that was the highest priority, and typically like I said, I'm going to default to the reviews service. Then I'm going to plug them after the call right into that. All I do is just tag them right in here. As a matter of fact, if I just go into tags, and you'll see, like, I'll put, like, say, review service. You'll see there's a reviews offer tag, right? And there's a LLG site offer and then there's a GBP SEO offer. So I've got 3 different tags, and all I do is add that tag to the contact record as soon as we get off the call. And then there's a wait step in that automation that will wait 24 hours, and it will send the first email, and it's 5 emails over 10 days. So every other day, it'll send an email that is a nurture sequence that with a call to action. The last two emails in the sequence are much stronger calls to action. The first, you know what I mean? It's just a whole sequence. Again, problem, agitate, solution, framework. So that is the whole process that we go through, guys. It's been a great process because now, again, it's crazy. I've heard from tree contractors, and sometimes I talk with their wives when we get on these calls. It's the wife of the tree guy. And so it's interesting, but I've had a lot of in these conversations over the last few weeks, people say like, this is really helpful. Like, we're not ready right now. And I say, you know what, that's fine. And to me, I'm okay with that because I'm not hurting for the income right now to where I have to feel like I got to close them on this call right now. I don't have to be so aggressive. And that is, it makes it easier, I think, and more comfortable for the business owner, right, to make the decision to work with me because they see that I'm not pushy, if that makes sense. We're not pushy. We're not trying to hard close them. Hey, the door is always open to you. We'll be here when you need you. If it's all right with you, I'm always asking permission before sending them stuff, right? If it's all right with you, I'm going to plug you into an email sequence over the next few days. You're going to receive a couple of emails from me about this particular, whatever it was that we talked about. And it'll have a link to the checkout page if you decide you want. But again, if you're not obligated to, we're here whenever you need us. And so that's the whole process we go through, guys. That's the phase 2 part of the DHA program, is really the sales and then the fulfillment of those services, which are basically high-level produced services. If it needs manual, I have done for you services available. My team can handle all that stuff. So that's essentially what that is. So anyway, I know I spent a lot of time on that, but that was a really good question. I was there last week. I said I wasn't going to have enough time to cover it last week, but I would try to cover it at the start of this call. James, I hope you got some value out of that. In the mastermind, when I launched phase 2, which we were hoping to launch in March, but I'm still not 100% finished developing that side of it yet. Still learning things that are and finding things that make it better. I think it's just been a bit premature to launch phase 2 yet. So, but the phase 2 kind of side of things is really where the money is made, because that's the sales and the fulfillment side of things. And it's a great way to sell without being pushy, and it's low cost front end services. And I started to say this earlier, and then I got off track, but that was the review service. Why I kind of default to that as the primary service is because with that, I'm not going to reveal this now, but there's I have sales calls too, recordings of recent sales calls that are going to be part of the phase 2 program, just so you guys know. So you'll have recordings of my actual calls that you'll see for how to structure your own calls. It'll help you to practice, essentially. But the reviews can provide a result, very quickly, depending on what the current status of the reviews are, and also in their particular industry and in their particular location, what is kind of the review counts and velocity of their competitors. As long as that's normal, like average for most local businesses, then what we do for the review service is we can get them, significant influx of reviews very quickly from an existing customer list. But even if they don't have that ready yet, because they typically never do, especially tree guys, they're terrible at having customer lists in any usable or reasonable format. Now, the younger guys typically do. They'll have some sort of digital format of the customer database or customer list, essentially. But a lot of the older guys that I deal with are literally paper and pen type guys, like no kidding, and like clipboards and shit like that. No kidding. And so I've had an enormous, it's been very frustrating to try to get contact lists, customer lists from tree contractors in a usable format. So oftentimes there is a delay between when they start a service with me and when I get the customer list. There's usually a couple of weeks that go by, and I usually have to stay on top of them, remind them multiple times to get the customer list to me. And I tell them, look, just send it to me as I need name, phone number, and email. That's all I need. If you send me the list of your customers with name, and one or the other could be missing, phone number or email, as long as you have one of those two, phone number or email, put them on the list. And so anyway, but even if they don't have that, or it takes them a couple of weeks to get that, as long as they have, I have another method that I can use to get them reviews very quickly without spamming reviews. Okay, just to be clear, we're not buying reviews, we're not spamming reviews. But the whole point is, if with most local businesses and with tree contractors, especially, I found in most areas, some areas you'll find where the review count, the velocity is very, very high, but in most cases it's fairly low. And so that means if I can go in and get them 10 to 20 reviews in 7 days, like in the first 7 days, like it's almost guaranteed to produce a significant ranking bump for their Google business profile in map search. Does that make sense? Even if their website sucks, even if I really was recommending to them all three of the front end services, if we focus on reviews, we can typically show some sort of tangible result in a very, very short period of time. And so that's all it usually takes to them basically buy their confidence, for them to then want to ascend to additional services, add on additional services. That makes sense. So that's why, again, I said on the sales call, I will present to them what I think is most appropriate. If I feel like they're resistive to more than one service, then I'm always going to default back, or most of the time, default back to the review service. And I'll explain to them, look, if we can get you, and again, it's all relative to what their top ranked competitors are doing and everything else. But we'll say something like, look, if we can get you 15 reviews in the next 7 to 10 days, we can likely get your Google business profile to perform across a much wider area than what we were showing you here just a moment ago. You know what I mean? Like I'll say, then where you're currently showing here, we can usually get this green to expand a considerable amount just from the reviews alone. Now, it won't stick like that for long without the other components in place, the other elements properly optimized, which includes the site, the main website, and the Google business profile. But at least we can show some results quickly, so that then we can use that as an opportunity to pitch to them the additional services, right? LLG site, or basically a website, and Google business profile optimization and ongoing services, right? Ongoing optimization services, because we can tell them, look, you see what we were able to do. Now, that was the initial campaign. Now we're going to drip constant new reviews as you close new customers. We're going to ask, put them into the campaign to request a new review from each customer that you close. And any of the remaining customers from the contact list, we're going to put those on a drip schedule, because we only need to do a blast initially, and we don't want to cover the whole list all at once, right? Because then you run out of customers to get new reviews from. You only want to take a section of it, 50, maybe 50 contacts or 100 contacts, and put them into an initial campaign. But then afterwards, we go on a drip campaign, and then that's a great opportunity to then pitch to that contact, that your new client, that, hey, listen, if you want this to stick, we're going to have to do some of the other things, which would include having a better website, optimizing your GBP, et cetera. So again, my point is, all of this is about developing rapport, establishing conversation, delivering something of value, all of that before you even ever present an offer to them. And so that's the whole point, guys. It is a longer sales cycle, but it's not pushy. And I found that especially, local businesses like tree contractors, they get pitched garbage all the time. And so as soon as they think you're pitching them on something without developing that kind of rapport, you lose them. I mean, it's very difficult to break through. I'm sure some of you can relate. So anyway, that was a long time, guys, to go through that one, but it's a good question, good process. And all of that, by the way, is taught in the mastermind. Just to be clear, it's available to anybody. James says, how do you validate the emails you get from outscraper? Well, you can select validate emails within outscraper. Right. I just updated the SOP on this yesterday. It's not a joke. Let me just show you. Contact list right here. I literally just updated this yesterday. Outscraper right here. So right here, boom. Enhance results with other services. Emails and contact scraper, email address verifier. Right there's the screenshot that I took from in there when I was updating the SOP. So you can do email address verifier right from within outscraper, so that as it's doing the scrape job, it's verifying the email addresses. Okay. Outside of that, instantly, if you use instantly has an email verification integrated service too. And so in your campaigns, when you are uploading contacts through the CRM, or as you're setting up a campaign and you get to the import contact section, you can check a box to then have instantly verify the emails. If you want to use an external email verification source or service, I've used NeverBounce for years. I still use NeverBounce today when I, often. So NeverBounce isn't, but these are a dime a dozen. But pretty much all apps now, even high level, and if you go to settings, email services, you'll see, or it might even be in the business profile settings here, but they do have an email verification. It might be under settings emails, but there is an email verification service within within high level. So most all apps now have email verification integrated into them. It's just an option that you select. Okay. Moving on. Gregory says, is the local lead gen website, well, if you set up a local lead gen website, but do not also set up a matching Google business profile, since it is not a real local business, does it make it a lot harder to rank the website at the top of the search engines? And if so, what can you do to offset not having a Google business profile and still rank at the top SERPs? No, it doesn't. I mean, look, what I found, and this is my experience because I built a lot of these types of sites, local lead generation sites, organic only assets, is that a well-optimized website can significantly influence how the Google business profile performs in map search, but not the other way around. I've not seen in my own experience, I can rank a organic only website, right? So that's not connected to a GBP is what I mean. In organic search just as easily with or without a GBP. No kidding. Sometimes it's a little bit easier because with the GBP, you have now a brand association and the brand is validated in that, meaning like citations and things like that help to build brand authority. But what I found is that, I can rank a local lead generation organic only asset, basically, quite, fairly easy in organic search without, and having a GBP or not having a GBP doesn't significantly impact the rankability, so to speak, of the organic site, in my experience. But I have seen how the inverse of that, right, which is the GBP, when the self-hosted site that the GBP is connected to is optimized poorly, it negatively affects the performance of the GBP in map search. But when the website that it's connected to is optimized well, it improves the performance of the Google business profile in map search. That makes sense. So the whole point is, does it have a benefit of having a GBP? It can, for sure, because of the brand association, for sure. There's no question. But I don't really worry about that because, again, the local lead generation LLG sites are supposed to be really used as a sales tool more than anything, as a sales tool, right? So it's about getting the site up and ranked, and then you can monetize it either directly or indirectly, right? Direct monetization is by leasing the site or selling the leads, right? So you can do a rank and rent, or you can sell the leads, or you can do like, a revenue share for contractors that you trust in. But I don't recommend that up front. It's something that you would offer to a company that is buying leads from you that you've developed a good relationship with. So typically it's going to be rank and rent or pay per lead for the local lead generation sites if you want to do direct monetization. Indirect monetization, however, is using it to point to when you are pitching your services and in selling traditional retainer-based services to a company to optimize their brand. But at the same time, you're assigning that particular lead gen asset. Any leads go exclusively to them. That's how you justify using a portion of their retainer budget on a monthly basis to build links to your assets. Do you understand? That is literally why I don't think there's any ethical issue with that, right? Because that site is another asset that is performing, that can and is generating leads for the client that you have an agreement with. All leads are coming from that site is your site, but their leads are being forwarded to them. So you are taking a percentage of their budget on a monthly basis from the retainer to make sure that your site stays ranked. Do you get it? And so that's part of the reason why I developed that whole process, guys, is because I got tired of optimizing tree care companies brand and presence online, getting them to the top, and then having them cancel once they're at the top. The next winter is always when the cancellations come in because work slows down in the winter for tree guys. And so that's always the time when they want to cancel. And I've heard it many times where they say, I don't really want to cancel. I just want to pause my service until next spring. But a lot of the times those guys, because of what we did for them, they stay ranked for a while. Not all the time. I mean, certainly some slip a lot sooner. I mean, what's interesting is when they come back, I always raise their price 10%. I tell them, yeah, but costs have gone up and blah, blah, blah. And so it teaches them not to do that as often. But anyway, the whole point is, again, by having a portion of your client's retainer budget going to support your assets, you are retaining value from that client even after they cancel, right? Because you're still maintaining value for assets that you own and control that part of their budget helped to build and support and grow, if that makes sense. So anyway, just to answer your question, Gregory, it's not, I've not found it difficult. I've got dozens of sites that I've ranked, at least partially, that are used as sales tools, okay, that can be monetized directly or indirectly. All right, James says, can we offer Google Reviews Management as a low-cost service if we don't have GHO? Yeah, there's many services that do that. Bright Local has one that you can resell. I mean, there's dozens of them out there. It doesn't have to be high level, but in my opinion, why wouldn't you use high level, right? Because it offers so many other tools and automation opportunities, and it has the review service. And for $297 a month, which is their agency plan, you can infinitely scale, at least currently. There's no limitation. So you can have as many reviews clients as you want on that $397 a month plan, or $297 a month plan. So if you think about it, you can scale that, and each time you add a new reviews client, your cost per client goes down, if that makes sense. So in my opinion, you're way better off just using it. Again, that's my opinion, guys, because I'm a high level user. If in the specific ways that I use it, it's become critical to my businesses. That's clear. And that's, we integrate all of our client operations into their sub account too. Even if they don't, like, most of my tree guys do not use the high level app, guys, not at all. They don't access it at all, but every one of them has a sub account. You understand? We manage their campaigns in their sub accounts. That's clear. So, but most of my tree guys do not use high level. They don't have any desire to, and I don't blame them. So I don't force that on them. I tried to initially, and it was tough to keep anybody. So I stopped forcing them. Those that want it, I will, give them limited access to it, because I don't want them to have access to everything, because it'll confuse them anyway. So I just give them access to what they specifically request. So Chris Price says, can you explain how iframes pass link equity? Do they pass the link profiles or the link profiles? Or in other words, do they mess with the ratios on the pages that are in the iframes? Well, in Majestic, which is the only backlink analysis that I use, Chris, to answer your question, yes, it shows as a backlink. And embed shows as a backlink. It just shows as an empty anchor. That's why I have in all of my, let me pause the screen for a minute. Okay, so this is my competitive link analysis report or sheet workbook, right, that I use for all projects, all campaigns. And that's why we have an empty/frame anchor text type, because that is an empty/frame anchor text is an iframe or an embed or a redirect or an image backlink without alternative text. If there's alternative text, the alt text is the anchor text from an image backlink, just in case you guys were unaware of that. But if it's a hot linked image that is hyperlinked, or an image that is hyperlinked to something, so that when you click the image, it goes to a page URL, if there's no alternative text, that's an empty anchor. That's the same thing as an iframe. So that's how Majestic classifies it. I don't know about anything else. I don't use any other link analysis tools but Majestic. So, but how do they pass? It's almost like a bi-directional do-follow link, from my understanding. I am not the patent nerd. My former partner, Marco Benavides, he still was and still is somebody that studies patents and deciphers them and all that kind of shit. God bless him. I never wanted or had any desire to do that. In fact, I used to just rely on him to do it. And then he would kind of put it in layman's terms for stupid old me, because I had no desire to learn all that, like read all those patents, and that's just no way. It gives me a fucking headache. No thanks. So, anyways, but from what I understand from him, and I've done a ton of testing, and it appears to be correct. Which again, if it comes from the patent, it seems to be. But it's almost like a bidirectional do follow link with an iframe. Both link equity can pass from the iframe out to the page that it's ranked or embedded on. There's some bleed, and then there's also bleed from the page that the iframe is embedded on into the iframe, if that makes sense. Now, I don't know how much, I don't know, but I know that they basically act like bidirectional do follow links. Okay. Frederick says, hey, I got approached by a grad student looking for some free work. Skim by. No, it's big. Sorry, I've got a window open right here, and I've got earphones in, so I couldn't hear it. It's my neighbor coming in with his big ass work truck. That's what I could hear. Sorry, guys. Frederick says, hey, I got approached by a grad student looking for some free work to my agency to learn about AI for their course. Wondering what you would suggest would be a good use of time to look at AI, but also generate some leads for my agency. Also saw your previous video about indexing where you suggest booster pages. Are you using this on tier 1 assets like main blog? Is it safe? And if you have seen any benefits, or do you use it only for indexing content? Okay, so 2 very different questions. So the first question I'll answer both questions, but I'm saying I'll answer the first one first. What would you suggest AI? Well, I'll tell you what, like, you could look at like ChatGPT. What is it? Agent. I know there's some other ones out there too, but there's some really good videos out there that you can find on YouTube right now about some of these AI apps that will also have the browser integration to where they can actually go execute what you tell them to do. So you tell them like, hey, I need you to do this. I mean, there's several videos. I don't have time right now to go dig them up, but I've got some of them saved on in my own personal YouTube channel because they're amazing. Some of the stuff that they can do with, like, again, ChatGPT agent is one of the videos I saw where you're saying, go scrape leads from this directory, right? And then now go send emails out. So you can do like cold emails and all kinds of stuff where the AI agents that, that have the browser integration can actually do the whole thing. Or you can develop prompts and build the agents using something like N8N. And again, if it's a grad student that's trying to learn, that's what I would do, is get into learning how to build AI agents and using the apps that you can use to build those AI agents and doing prompt engineering, prompt chaining, and all that kind of stuff, which is much easier now because you can just ask the large language models to provide you with the prompt. You just tell them what you need, and then you tell them what you're trying to do, and they'll give you prompts, and then you just refine that prompt from there. So it's become a lot easier, but it's just about getting familiar with the tools that are available, the different large language models, which are more appropriate for which types of tasks, then building agents where you connect different components and things like that in proper sequences. And some of them, like N8N, can actually use like ChatGPT, right? It's the large language models to make decisions about what needs to be done. So it's really become crazy. And one of the things I recommend is joining some of these groups. Some of them are paid groups, like on School and things like that, where there are people in there that are doing a ton of this kind of work, because you can learn much quicker from them than you can just, being part of a mastermind, right? So, I always recommend to people to join our mastermind that are interested in local SEO and running a local SEO business, right? That's why we have a mastermind, because we cover all those topics. And it's a much easier, faster way to learn when you surround yourself around people that are actually in the business doing those things than it is from just consuming information that you find online. So I would recommend looking at some of those, like Julian Goldie's got a good one. There's a number of them out there that you can look up and just start watching the YouTube videos, or have your grad student start looking at AI and building AI agent YouTube videos and that kind of stuff, and find a coach or trainer, somebody that they like, that they click with or whatever, and then see what additional kind of support and groups that they have available that they can join, right? And then that's, I think, the best way to do it. Is find somebody that you like as a trainer, somebody that you like the way that they speak and teach, etc., and then see what they have available that then they can join kind of a paid groups and that kind of stuff. Right? That's what I would do. All right. Last thing is, also saw your previous video about indexing. Yeah. Okay. I use booster pages for tier 2 links, not for tier 1 links, just so you guys know. I use the RSS feed integration from like blogs that we use for link sources and all that kind of stuff, so that we're automating indexing for those posts, at least to a degree. Okay, so that's all I don't use it for tier one. Can you use it for tier one? Sure. They're not the greatest of links. So they're not going to help much, but that's why I use it specifically more for a indexing service than anything else, because they're not really powerful links. Not talking bad about it. I've been using the hell out of boosterpages for several years now. I like it. It's great for an indexing service, but as a link building service, it's not something that I would consider really, a link building service. In my opinion, it's more of an indexing service, really. So anyway, Huzaifa says, what are your thoughts on adding the location, state, and zip code for all locations, including supporting locations in the footer of the LLG sites? I heard it helps ranking, but not sure if it will work for organic only assets. Well, it probably would, but again, you can test with it. Huzaifa, I don't really have any thoughts on it. I haven't done that in a long time because I don't think it's necessary, because you can, again, accomplish all of that through schema so that it's not stuffed into the public facing page. And I never liked that. I hated that when I would go on the websites and they would have that section and it's every fucking zip code in the city. And some cities are big cities and there's literally dozens and dozens of zip codes and all that. And it just looks like crap. And why do that when you can accomplish that with schema, structured data, for real? So, I mean, you can test with it. I'm not discouraging you from testing with it. But what are my thoughts? And it doesn't need to be published on the page because it can be accomplished through the schema just the same, right? So I would do that so it's invisible to the user, the visitor, but the bots see it. Okay. But yeah, if you want to test with it, test with it. And I'd love to hear if you do test with it, if you could report back and let us know. Did it improve performance or hurt performance? But then go test that against pages that have the same data, but just in the schema instead of publicly shown on the page. Does that make sense? And then compare your results, right? Because my guess is you'll be able to achieve the same thing and make the page more visually appealing to a user to not have all that stuff on it. But again, that's just my opinion, so you're free to test. For a new LLG root domain, is it all right to immediately build a link to it? Is it better to wait? If so, well, I would try to get the homepage or the directory page. If it's the homepage is the directory page, which is what I do. I would wait till it indexes first. I typically wait till it indexes, which, by the way, building a link to it can help it to index. But let me back up. Doing something like a press release, if you were going to do a press release, would be okay because that's an announcement of a new business. So I don't give a shit if it's indexed or not. I'll publish a press release if I'm going to do a press release as my first promotion, which is normal for normal businesses. For a LLG type of a campaign, probably not. But you could submit it for indexing to Google Search Console. You could submit it to some indexers. You could, tweet about it or do X about it. I don't know if that still helps. It used to. I don't know if it still helps or not with indexing. If you have a Google business profile somewhere, you could send a link to it, a link to it from a Google business post. That usually will get Google to crawl it sometimes and get it to index faster. So there's a number of things you can do before you start building links to it. But I typically would wait till it indexes first. Okay, just to be clear. Unless it's a press release, but for an LLG root domain where it doesn't have an actual valid local business tied to it, I wouldn't do a press release. Not yet, anyway. If you have to become an affiliate, have the become an affiliate option for your semantic link service, how do you recommend we promote your service? Paid ads? No, just referrals. That's all that is. Yeah, that's all I would do is just refer people. You get 10% off 10% of any one-off sale and 10% or a 10% commission of any one-off sale that you refer, and then 10% off the first monthly payment for any subscription service. Okay, so you get 10% commission, but on subscriptions, it's only for the first payment, not recurring, just to be clear. It's a white label service, guys. Our margins are thin intentionally so that we can keep our pricing low so that our agencies have margin markup. Right, they have the ability to mark up the service so that they have some profit margin. So that's why we run at roughly a 30% margin ourselves as a white label agency. When I first started it was 20% margin. Over the last 3 years, I've been able to bring some stuff in house and reduce costs in certain ways and everything else to where now I'm running at about a 30% margin. I was just talking to an agency owner yesterday, and I was asking him what his margins were. And it was, 40% or whatever, 41% profit margin on his. And I was like, damn, that's good. Because I thought I'd gotten mine pretty good. As a white label service provider, 30% is decent margin. It's okay. It's not great, but anyway, I can't provide more commissions than that. I've had people reach out and ask me that. It's like, you do know this is a white label service, right? I'm not giving you half of my commissions, man. That's not worth the effort on my part. I'll give you 10% of the cost, referral fee, right? So just referrals. Mark says, I was wondering if you have some top clear GMB ranking strategies that are safe to implement. Yeah, post content, do Google Business Posts, upload photos often. If it's a service area business, take photos. Every time any technician from the company, or it might not be a technician, whatever the company does, if it's a service area business, whenever they go to the customer location, snap 3 to 10 photos. I always say 3 to 5 typically. Snap 3 to 5 photos from every single job location and upload them directly to the Google Maps profile. Anybody can upload photos to a Google Maps profile, guys, a Google Business profile. Anybody can, right? You just go to Google Maps, search for the company, pull up the listing, and then you can click add photos. Anybody can do that. So anybody at the company can take photos if it's a service area business out on the job sites and then upload them to the GBP. Do that consistently, and you'll see that that will influence what Google understands about that business. It doesn't happen overnight, but it works really well for service area businesses when they're consistent with it. Number 2, get reviews. Get reviews. Make sure that your client or your business, whatever it is constantly getting reviews from clients. Make it a priority to have a review collection campaign and system in place, a process in place, right? If you have past customers that never got asked for a review, if you got a list, plug it into a review generation service campaign. Like a high level's great for that stuff, guys, right? So reviews, photos, publishing content, make sure the GBP is fully optimized. Make sure your website that is connected to is optimized well, which that's where I see the biggest issue right now for GBP ranking is that they are connected to websites that are optimized like it was 2020. And that is what's causing so many GBP's performance to suck right now. It's because they're linked to over-optimized websites because there's a lot of local business sites out there using outdated tactics that the helpful content update specifically addressed, really. So again, all those things matter, but specifically to try to get the GBP to perform better, the 2 things that I found to be the most valuable, most important, well, and really the third thing is the website. But number 1 is getting reviews consistently and responding to those reviews properly. Because that shows Google that you're responsive to the business is responsive to the customers, but it also gives the opportunity to inject keywords and or location mentions into the replies of the reviews. So you get to add more relevance to the GBP by collecting more reviews and then replying to those reviews and inserting keywords about products and services and or locations about where those products or services were delivered. All of that into the GBP, and then uploading photos that are taken from out within the service area if it's a service area business, right? Do that consistently, and then again, the self-hosted site that it's linked to should be optimized to proper local SEO standards today, which is significantly different than it was even 3 or 4 years ago. And that's where I see the biggest issue, honestly. All right. How do you make effective drive stacks for local SEO? I don't know, because I don't make them anymore. Sorry, Lily. I don't make them anymore. I've been using vendors for that for years. Are you kidding? How long it takes to build a drive stack? No, thank you. I've been using vendors for years. So David Morgan's on right now. He's somebody that you can buy drive stacks for local SEO for. And he's good at it. He's good at them. I know I'm supposed to be buying some from him, but I have not yet, David, and I apologize. But I know that I can recommend David for that. Jason from 2015 just stopping by to say hello. Finally got my old Facebook and seen how much I use chat and annoy you. What's up, Jason? Checking up on me. You're one solid dude. Thanks. You're welcome. Thanks, Jason. Glad. Thank you for the kind words. Sorry. Who was the guy you recommended for Google Ads? Ed Leak. Ed Leak. God tier ads, I think. If you just look at EdLeak, you could say or Google Ads, sorry. He's got a great YouTube channel, and he's also got the Agency Forge, which is a circle community. But he's got a God tier ads framework. So I think that's like one of his kind of lead magnet type front end offers. But he's one of the best, in my opinion, for Google Ads. So EdLeak. All right. Any chats or comments? I might be the only one left anyway. So no, Adam's still here. What's up, Adam?
Hey, oh, yeah, we got a
I didn't know
couple
he was
things.
here.
I wasn't keeping close track and I lost it, but there was at least one.
All right, it'll be fun. All right. Let's see, David. I'm gonna make it automated pretty soon. Yeah, I know, David. You set up a landing page for me too. I know. I'm sorry, dude. I promise you, I will be buying from you. I've been just really busy with the DHA stuff. Alex says, Bradley, how is the AI stuff you're working on going? Slow, very slow, because I have very limited bandwidth for doing anything other than managing my existing businesses. So it's difficult because I still got to do SEO testing and all that kind of stuff. So it's difficult, but it's coming along. I'm working on the RankBridge stuff really still. That's very time consuming, at least initially, because I'm developing the SOP for that as I go. And that's why it's taking me so long. Eric says, hey, all, does KP only still work the knowledge panel only? Sorry, I had a whisker in my mouth. If not, is there a way to only pull up the knowledge panel? Yeah, it does. Just the format changed of the URL string. It changed a bit. I can't pull that up right now. I do have that in the mastermind, but it would take me too long, and we're already over. So, Eric, there is a way to pull up the knowledge panel only URL, but it's a specific URL format that does that with the KPID or whatever it is. KGID, maybe it is, whatever it is. I have to look at the URL and then I'll be like, oh yeah, that's it. But I don't have that offhand, so sorry. But if you show up early next time, I know you probably asked that early, but put it in the questions form. How about that? And then I'll make sure it gets covered. All right, moving on. 9 says subscribe, David Morgan. Let's see. 9 says, does it cost you money to run that scan every time? Yes, it does. To do the local search grid image, yes, it does. We're using Lead Snap for that. It's not cheap, but lead generation isn't cheap, guys. Again, Dan Kennedy. Dan Kennedy says, he who can spend the most money to acquire a new customer will always win, right? So I'm not saying that like your whole goal should be to spend more money to acquire customers, but what I'm saying is I'm not afraid to spend money to acquire customers, right? Like my appointment setting company that sets appointments for my white label agency, they charge me $250 per booked appointment. That's not a guaranteed close, right? That's just the appointment. So I'm paying $250 for a chance to land a new client, right? And so I don't mind paying $4 or $5 or whatever it is, $4, $3.50, whatever it is, to run a local search grid report that I can then use as a sales tool to try to close that client, because what I'm doing for Tree Care HQ to generate leads is significantly less costly than paying what I pay for a booked appointment for my appointment setting company for my white label agency. You see what I'm saying? Because I'm managing the lead gen for Tree Care HQ versus having another company do it. So I'm not afraid to pay $15, $20 to generate a lead. If I get them on that book sales call, to me, it's worth it, right? It's worth it because now I have a really good chance of maybe not closing them on the call, but within a few months of that call, we're typically going to close them on something. Because again, now once they're in the system and we get off that call, I've developed that relationship and I plug them in the nurture sequences, and they're going to continue to hear from me until they tell us to fuck off. Seriously, they're going to continue to hear from us. So anyway, moving on. How does the reviews management work? You just reach out to their contacts, asking them a list for reviews. Yeah, if you post that question in the questions form, which you can find on the Hump Day Hangout page, then I can show you next week. I can show you exactly what the snapshot is that I do for review requests. It's part of a snapshot that I bought from Go High Level Smart Apps, GHL Smart Apps, which is company run by Jason Orban. It's called DHL Smart Reviews. You have to buy a license, which I did, but I got the unlimited license, and so now I can add in my agency account. I can add every new sub account gets automatically added to the GHL Smart Reviews script, which is like this custom script that has to be integrated into the high level account and everything else. But that's what I use, and so it's infinitely scalable. And it's a great review service. I can show you examples of what we're able to do with it for contractors. I'll use Box Tree Care as the example because that's the example I showed today. I'll use that next week. So just post that question in the questions form for next week, and I will cover that live on the call next week. Right. David Morgan, that's operators. Yeah, Claude does it as well. Yeah, that's the chat apps that have browser integrations. It's amazing what some of those things can do. Costco says, can subdomains rank just as well as a root domain? Yes. Does it require more backlinks? No. All right, sweet. All right, guys. Thanks everybody for being here. Thanks everyone for sticking around for extra